but I decided
Yeah.
I'd put them down too. Hi there. So, whether you've been on a first date yet or not, lots of people are really concerned about what do I ask? What do I
Hmm.
say? How do I keep the conversation going? Nobody likes those big spaces in the middle of a date. So, Barry and I today are going to talk about fun first date questions. I think you'll
Yeah.
find it fun. This conversation will be fun.
Yes, indeed.
So we're on the newsstreamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast, #1 internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine.
So certainly one of the ways to craft your, as we love to call it, I'm curious to get to know you questions is what's the point? What sorts of things would you like to learn about this person at your first meeting that will tell you whether or not you want to see them again? Because that's a lot of the point of dating and certainly the first meeting.
Yeah.
And nobody likes to feel like they're interviewing or interrogating, and nobody likes feeling like somebody is interviewing and interrogating. So, how do you get to the point of finding out things about them in a lighthearted, I'm so curious way, right, Barry?
Well, not only that, but also what adds to the conversation, what's inspiring, what's thrilling, what's exciting. So the thing is that we have a bad tendency to go for data points,
Yeah.
whether it's interviews for jobs or grocery shopping or dates. Unfortunately, we don't tend to separate them out. And really, the idea about going on a date is you're meeting a new person, maybe your life partner, you don't know. So wouldn't it be good to really ask the questions that get you excited as well? So yeah, we definitely have some fun with this.
And it's also really important to know what your answer is,
Yes.
because hopefully they'll ask you the same question back because they'll be just as interested to learn that about you.
Yeah.
And I have said more than once, because it's happened to me and I like it a lot, when somebody asks me a question that I haven't been asked before, that really fits me. It fits who I am. They've thought about it. It's not just some arbitrary, what's your sign thing. So the first time I was asked, what is the most important thing you've learned from being a coach, and what do you think your clients have learned is the most important thing? And I was like, I'm going to think about that for a minute, because
Nice question.
I had some things off the top of my head. I really wanted to dig into that question. It was very intriguing, and I have to tell you, no one's ever asked me either of those questions. It was very it just got my juices going, I have to tell you.
Nice. And it's a good one to have because it definitely is, as you said, it's a personal question to you because it's about what you do, but it also gives you food for thought because you never considered it before. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I talked personally. It's a very professional question, and it gave me a chance to say personally, this is how I feel about this job, even though it's my job. It's what I do and not what I who I am, all of it. It certainly gave me a chance to share some of my really things that juice me up, and some things that are really important to me in the big scheme of things and not just for my job. It was a very good question.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the top 10 for a start.
I think so. And then Allison Armstrong had one recently that I have been sharing with everybody. Please tell me something you'd like me to know about you.
Hmm. That's really a
Because
good
that
question.
way they get to share what they're ready to share, right?
Yeah, it really puts it's a cheat question in a way because it's really a question that isn't directly specific, but it really gives a space for you to share whatever you want, which then puts you on the hot seat to share something of value that they want to hear about you. So yeah, it's a good question to ask. It provokes dialogue for sure.
Well, because right now, I have here a really secure, masculine men, lots of them, not all, have been so misunderstood by questions they've asked they thought were innocent and benign, that they're really, as you could you nod your head, concerned about this person didn't like the question. Would this person be okay with the question? And it's truly, I have to tell you, they're absolutely benign. They're not asking what sex position you're wanting. It's really an intrigued, I want to get to know you question. And we women, I used to be this overly sensitive. Everything bothered me. I had to overthink everything. My feelings were like on a little edge, certainly right after my divorce. And I had to get over myself and stop doing that and say, what if he really meant this as a very innocent question? So
Right.
I tell men, please start, we're somewhere in the new part of the conversation, you could say, tell me something you'd like me to know, because you might get a direction that you could ask more questions that's safe for this particular person. I feel so sorry for you guys in the dating world right now for that specific reason.
Yeah, the main thing is just as an overarching thing about the questions, and not necessarily those fun first date questions, but smart first date questions, is there's a difference between open-ended questions and closed-ended questions. Meaning that if you're asking somebody a question where they give you a yes or no answer, or a specific data point, like, how tall are you, 5'2", whatever that is, versus tell me about things in your life that were this, this, and this, it creates a different place for conversation. And so as a bottom line period for any conversation you have with you on a first date, are just questions that are opening up to different possibilities and gets them to think about themselves, their own experience, is a healthier way of approaching the conversation. So there is a conversation to be had in the first place. I mean, it sounds simplistic, but the reality is open-ended gives you open place to go. It gives you room to grow and to expand into, because that question leads to other questions and other shares. So just that philosophy alone will get you started on this journey.
So much. And another big instruction to keep right at the front of your brain is you're listening to learn, not just listening to respond.
Yes.
Because often what we do as human beings are like, what do I think about that? Do I care about that? Where's the point? What am I going to say about that? What will they think about what I say? You're going to miss more than half of what they're saying. So if you just go, I'm going to not care what they say initially, unless it's offensive. Generally, that's not going to happen. So I'm just going to listen. And then I'm going to think about, now what do I think about it? Because what happens is we women will hear, maybe you get 5 words out of your mouth. And then we have questions and we want to know more. But we would learn so much more if we would just wait.
There is a certain gift of holding space, because that's the other part of this too, is that if you're asking questions, you want to wait for the answer. As you said earlier, which I agree with, you want to listen to hear, not listen to respond, because it is tempting sometimes to listen to somebody whilst you're rehearsing your answer, in which case you don't hear anything they say anyway, versus listen to everything they're doing and then you consider what they've said before you respond with something else. So you take your time to think about this as well as part of the journey and enjoy your first date. Is there isn't a rush to get everything covered. It's okay if you don't say anything for a minute. You can sit with ideas and consider and process and digest and think about things. That's part of the fun of being with somebody. Meeting somebody new, test out how comfortable they are with silence as well.
For sure. Yeah. Because there's hardly anybody that doesn't have some level of nervous and or excitement when you're meeting somebody the first time. And it can go up if you think they're really cute or you've had this great telephone conversation. Now it's gotten more important. It's gotten higher on the emotional scale. And then we tend to interrupt more. We tend to talk more. We tend to ramble. So taking a breath is really helpful, because you can't interrupt while you're thinking about you're taking a breath. And it'll help you stay relaxed and be more set. We promise we're going to get to the questions, but the questions are not going to be helpful if you haven't had some of this ground, right?
Yes, it's kind of like, we're definitely setting the framework for which to have questions work for you. Because basically, if you go into a new first date, all your questions without having the understanding of how to be in a place to ask questions and how to hear questions and answers, you're going to miss the boat. So yeah, absolutely. This is important groundwork to lay as well.
For sure. And one other thing I want to address is, if they start out their answer with something you completely disagree with, wait, you could completely disagree with their whole answer. Let them give you the whole answer. At least let them get the whole answer out. If you're going to come up with a great rebuttal, as they do in court, the judge interrupts them. Everybody gets their say, and then you can say something. Because I'll tell you, there's been times before I was really good at this when they said, but that's not what I meant. If you'd listen, and they got impatient with me. I was a very good interrupter. I was excellent at it.
Oh yeah.
Don't do it anymore, most of the time. And when I now listen, it's amazing how much more, if you could let them finish their thought. It's not that I don't disagree sometimes. I just get a chance to hear more about it. And then I have even more reason to say, wow. And sometimes I'll say, tell me even more why that's your thought. And then may I tell you, I'm going to tell you mine's different than that. And you can, I mean, really, I've disagreed with people that it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we ended up still disagreeing, they made really good points, and I could see it didn't change my mind and I didn't change theirs. I really admire how they really thought it out, though. And if you interrupt them, you're not going to think they thought things out really well. You're just going to think they're stupid.
Yeah, that's not the first date conversation either. You know, if you confront somebody and tell them that you think they're stupid, that's not really a good way to have a first date ending anyway. I mean, yeah, if you're really blunt, you could, I suppose, but it'd be nice to leave a first date better off than you found them, ideally. So if you're feeling that they're stupid, save that for your therapist.
That's a really good advice. So if you go back and you think about what's the point, what are like the top 3, 5 things you really need to learn about this person to decide if you want to see them again. So certainly the questions, not just observing them and their voice and how they look and how they're treating people, because we all know I want somebody nice. I want to hear about their activity level. And so what I've often asked people is, tell me how you spend your Sunday. It's really fun because it's such a either very structured or very free day. I've learned about all sorts of stuff I would never do, and stuff I went, oh, I would do that. And then stuff, yeah, that's how mine goes too. And it's been telling. I have learned so much of what I wanted to learn, because Sunday is a little bit of my sleeping in day. And if they get up and do stuff, I eventually will ask them, is that something you want your partner to do with you? And it's always nice if they say no, because I don't go do anything at generally 5 o'clock in the morning. So I love asking, because they're usually it's a day off usually, and whatever they do, they seem to have a little more enthusiasm about that day. It's not necessarily the errand day or the chore day. They have a little more freedom. And I want to hear how they spend their day. So I've gotten lots of information from that question.
No, I love that. And it's something that it's interesting, because the thing is, it's very tempting to get caught up in things like politics and belief systems that can get really down in the mud. And so the direction of the questions and the intention of the questions for me, I always find is, what is it that's more inspirational? What is it that's more enlightening? What is it more motivating? Because the idea about like what you do on Sundays is really good, because some people that might be going to church or do something spiritual, or do something service, it might be going hiking or sleeping in. Everyone has their own thing. And knowing that is a good way of deciding right up front what you want with that person. So it's a good thing to have that understanding before you go in.
And you learn if they do go to church every Sunday, do they want somebody to go with them? Do they sit around and drink coffee and read the newspaper and do the crossword puzzle? I mean, I've heard all sorts of stuff. It's been been a fun question to ask. So what's one of your questions, Barry?
I think one of the most important ones for me lately in my life is about how do you serve? Because I have a passion in my life about being of service in different places. Some of it's informal, most of it's formal. And I want somebody who, if they're not doing it now, has done it a lot over the years, because there's a mindset and heart set shift that happens when somebody does service work, because it gives them a sense of humanity and spaciousness that somebody hasn't done it generally doesn't carry for themselves. And so for me, having service is such a key part of my life, and I want somebody who does the same thing too. So we do things together. So that will be definitely a together type focus.
Yeah, boy, I tell people I have to volunteer. It is a need, like air and water. I have to have some sort of place that I'm gifting back. And I prefer to have it not be what I do for a living. Even when I planned parties for a living, I didn't want to do that for free.
Yeah.
I would go to an event and volunteer and paint tablecloths, because I don't do that when I'm working. That was really a fun thing to do. So do you gift back somehow in your life? And if they don't, okay, that might not be a deal breaker. But because you and I really have a need to gift, it's really helpful to find out, do they or not? It could be like, why? I mean, I give money in the mail, which is lovely. I like being in person kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, things that might be something they never thought about it before, and suddenly going, wow, I want to find out more about that. Let me come do it with you. That's great. So it's not necessarily they have to be doing it all the time themselves, but definitely if there's someone who basically does, well, I just send money, that's not the same thing as service. Definitely not for me. You know, I donate well financially, but I also love to give them time, because the time is more valuable than money, as far as I'm concerned. And so
Me
having
too.
that joy, that freedom to do things is so additive. And frankly, it gives me a way to see the world in a much healthier way, simply put.
So the other question I had to really get comfortable with answering before I started asking it is, what's the thing that only the people, and just a tiny explanation, what's the thing that only the people that are really close to you would know about you? And I want just tiny. I'm not asking for you to share any big things, because what I've learned, because I learned to answer that, was how funny I am when I'm relaxed. Because I'm really funny. And the people that are close to me in my life go, "Oh my God, you're so funny." And I do have my very serious side, and then I have a very in the middle side where I have a great sense of humor and I like laughing at other people. I am the more relaxed I get, the funnier I get. So I'm not revealing anything that they could use against me or give me a hard time about. And what one man said was, "Well, I'm going to accept that as a challenge." And I said, "Well, okay." I was really, because I wasn't giving it out as a challenge, but now I think of it that way.
Yeah,
He said, "Well,
absolutely.
now throw down the gauntlet." That was a really fun interchange when that happened.
I love that. It's such a simple question, but there's such profound possibilities that come out of that. That's great.
And I've had people really stop, because I get, not only are they thinking about it, but they're thinking, what would I say and how much would I say? And I don't want you spilling, I'm not spilling my big secrets on the first meeting. I don't want you either. And it's been fun, the answers I've gotten, really fun, intriguing.
Absolutely. And it does create such a great next piece, because the thing about it is that they ask the question, you give an answer which gives them something to work with, which is a really cool thing. So the questions you're asking on dates, ideally they give you more fuel, more it's like a next step that you can play with, the next exploration. Because the thing is if you ever list 20 questions, even if they're good questions, it can get really flat very fast. But if your questions lead to questions that weren't on your sheet or weren't in your mind, that are just provocative because of what you started talking about, that's exciting. That's fun. That really does help you get to know somebody.
And it's funny, because one of the questions can be too, what do people generally misunderstand about you? And I would say, again, there are a couple things I give as the answer, but with this answer in mind, I'd say they think I'm so much seriouser than I am.
Yeah.
And the people who like having that conversation with me are thrilled, because I'm very grounded, very down to earth, very centered, and they have no idea how really rowdy I can get. And it's really fun, because I feel like I earn people's trust and they get to earn my trust. And I have a very clear scale as I watch it open up, my little circle of friends, how close they can get to my heart. And so that's been the thing that's been fascinating. And I never offended, because I'm like, oh, I'm keeping them in the right spot. This is exactly where they're to be, that they would think I'm more serious. I'm fine with that, because I do have that very serious side. And I want somebody that wants to be with me that's okay with that too.
That was the spectrum. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We're coming up towards the break. So you want to tell them about they can reach you and that sort of thing?
Thanks for keeping track of the time. I can just get so carried away. Well, if you are intrigued with learning about first date questions, if you felt that you had no idea what to say, or you felt like you put your foot in your mouth, Barry and I would be so happy to have a conversation with you about that. So the way to have a conversation with me is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. Scroll to the middle of the page to the What's Holding You Back from Love questionnaire. Click on that, 10 brief questions about where you are now, where you think you'd like to be. And then you have access to my calendar. You get to schedule a complimentary conversation at your convenience. You're also welcome to send me a personal private email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And Barry?
Well, similarly to Christine, you can also get on my calendar and fill out some questions. We go to my website, which is barryselby.com. And so at the top of the screen is a Let's Chat button, I should say, in the first top panel, the first panel of the website. So top half, yes. Sorry, I'm going halves page. It's on the top page. There's a Let's Chat button. Click on that. You get to answer some questions on my questionnaire, and then also click on my calendar so you can book a session with me as well. And both of us offer that as a gift, because we want to make sure you get where you want to go, but also that you're in the right place, that we want to work together. You can drop me an email at barry@barryselby.com. and we'll tell you more about them. Where ways you can reach us at the end of the broadcast. So we're taking a break, and we'll see you back very shortly.
And speaking of first dates, that conversation is like a first date to see if we both want to still talk to each other, right?
Indeed, that is very true.
It takes two yeses always. We'll be right back.
See you in a moment.
Hello, we're back with Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry, and today we're talking about fun first date questions.
Yes.
Really important to have something prepared so that you will feel more comfortable and confident at your first meeting, that you feel prepared with, I want to learn this, and here's some questions I can use to learn it.
I was just thinking whether it's a good or a bad thing to show up with a notepad with questions written down on them. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or not. You know, they have questions that you memorize, so you know pretty much off the top of your head, rather than having actually like a notebook where you're taking it. You're not interviewing somebody. You're not filling a questionnaire. It's not that sort of thing.
Such a
But the intention is you want to get to know them, and so this whole theme is about questions that are enjoyable, expansive, understandable, and going deep. But if you don't know or don't have the questions written down, find another way to record them, put them in your mind so you remember them. Even if you don't know all of them, if you have some of them, that may enough to get you started.
Yeah. Oh, Barry, that's such a good point. In my personal experience, I'm sure it's happened, but I've never had a woman complain about a guy putting a list on the table, but I've had so many guys explain to me the woman had the list on the table and boxes to check. And the sad thing was, when I asked him what kind of, I said, did you mind? He goes, it was more the questions than the list. You know, how much money do you make? What kind of car do you drive? I mean, I was floored because I would never ask those kind of questions.
Right.
So what I tell women, if you really want to have a little cheat sheet in your handbag that has just a couple of words that remind you of each question, you get a lipstick, you get a hanky. I mean, it's a little harder for guys. And so bringing that up, I will suggest that if you said, gosh, I'm not really good at this, and I wrote down some, I think they'll be fun questions. You can tell me, let me know if you don't think they're fun. Would be okay if I put them down. So I really want to remember these. If you approach it that way, where you're like getting them on your side and they don't feel like you're going to bring in the hot lights and the thumb screws. If you really want a list, so you don't forget, front load it this way so that they don't feel like, am I passing the, resume check or something?
Exactly, because that creates a much gentler space because you're letting them know up front what's going on. Yeah. And it is showing them, first of all, that you are actually interested, that you do want to find out more, which is a good sign, but also you want to ask the right questions that you know have been things you've been tossing around for yourself. So it creates a freedom and it creates a safety for the other person. And frankly, any person who's being asked that direction and that level of innocence, I say, is one of a word. I think it's going to be very welcoming and very respectful. So I think it works pretty well to do it that way.
And you're going to learn, if this is who you are and this is how you are less nervous and you're telling them this in the most respectful way and they don't like it, I think that's a good thing to learn too on a first meeting. Maybe not your person. If you're doing your best and you explain you're doing your best and they don't like it, you might not be a match.
This is why there's so much more going on than just the questions. Because the thing of talking about these questions, they're very useful because they help you get to know the other person, which is great. But how the process goes, how the stumbling blocks, the questions, the diversions, the receptivity or the lack of receptivity will tell you so much more than just the questions will. Sure. So this exercise of just asking fun first date questions, it's a lot more weighty than just that simple thing. So you're going out and you're doing dates and you're using these questions, just be really sensitive and notice what's going on as well, because there might be things happening that you're not even aware is going on if you're not looking at them instead of the questions. So this is a profoundly powerful process that's more than you think it is. There's
so many layers, as always.
Yes.
So when I very first started doing online dating in 2001, but I was dating before that because I was divorced for a while before that. I'd had this little, when you had little page calendars, there were a little square and you'd tear off a page every day. It was the calendar of questions. And there was a different, really, most of them were very interesting questions. So I'd take a couple and I'd stick them in my purse. And then I'd explain, gosh, I have this calendar and it has these really weird questions. Would it be okay? We could ask each other. And I never got a no. And I remember one question after all these years, because I thought it was interesting and every answer was different. So the question was, if you knew you were going to come back 10 times, 10 lifetimes, and you were going to remember all of them, how many would you like to be a man and how many would you like to be a woman? It was all over the board, Barry. And why? Why would you pick it? Because I said, I love being a woman. But I think I'd like to be a guy 3 times. I want to space it out just to see what it's like, but I want 7 to be a girl. That was my answer always. It was
Interesting.
what I learned a lot about people when they answered that question, more than I think they thought I wanted to learn.
Well, it's one of those questions where it's not a question you normally hear. So you're sitting there going, wow, I didn't have an answer to that one because it wasn't something I expected. So that's a great one to bring up. And it's so funny because I'm sitting with it now going, how many would I choose? Interesting.
This is another time you have to be really quiet because men especially, you want to give a true, really true. I'm telling you, ladies, good men, they don't lie. If you back them into a corner, maybe. First out of the gate, they really want to take this. So that's why they think about it for a while to really give you their truth.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to be quiet while you're thinking, because we will get the truth. And I waited a lot for this answer because they really did think about it.
Yeah, we shared this thing before about Alison Armstrong's description of how that works when men are asked questions by women. So I was going to insert it here just so we recognize on our first date why there should be gaps from when you ask the questions when you get an answer. The challenge for us men is we have to process what you've been asking us. We don't usually have an instant answer formulated. And for women, that's not necessarily a thing for them. They generally can just jump over an answer and it's already connected right the way through. We have to access the information inside. So when you ask the question of us, it takes a moment for us to go, oh, question, let me go look in the answer in my data bank to find the answer for the question. So have the patience to let them answer on their own time. Because the challenge is if you think he didn't hear the question, you're going to repeat the question differently the first time. He's going to start all over again. He's going to go, hang on a second, you started over. I'm going to go reset and start over again. It's a very messy process if you don't let the other person answer. And it's true when men are asking women questions as well. Let them sit with the question too. So having the spaciousness when you're on a date to let the question percolate, let the answer percolate, is sometimes one of the most titillating, fun things about being on first dates.
I tell women, review a conversation you had with somebody. We're really good at that. Or make out a shopping list. You need to not say anything until he says something, because I tell you 100% of the time, they're going to say something, even if I don't really know. They'll tell you if they don't know. They'll tell you if they know. They'll tell you if they need more information. You just need to wait for them to say something. Yeah. That's why I got so many different answers, because I waited. And then even when you've given the answer, you wait. Does he have more? Because he might have more, because there's more things bubbling up. Because the other thing you guys are really good at, better than us, to say, okay, I'm done now. You're really good at knowing when you've emptied, you've shot the rest of the answer. And if we just wait, it's amazing what you'll tell us and how much we get to learn about you. Not just the answer, but how thoughtful he was about thinking about it. You get to hear the tone of his voice when he's really thinking. You get to hear what truth-telling sounds like coming from him. You can watch his mannerisms, how committed he is to it. I mean, if he does all that, and there's other really good things, that's the kind of guy I would want to see another time. You would never know this if you don't. Ladies, shut up.
I was being polite, but you can definitely say more bluntly than I can in that context.
I'm allowed to say that because I'm a girl. Yes.
Exactly.
I get to speak this kind of stuff for men all the time because I know you cannot. You cannot. So I'm happy to tell women, please shut up, because you will be so rewarded.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yep. So do you have another question?
Let me think about this for a second. Yeah, one question I thought was always fun to ask is, if you ruled the world, what would be the first thing you did?
Wow. Oh, I'd really have to talk about that. That's a really good question. If I was in charge of everybody's everything, I really need to think about it. I'm glad I'm not. I have thought of that occasionally. I'm so glad I'm not in charge of really big stuff. I like making my little difference that goes out there. That's a really good question. And you would learn a lot. Oh my God. What kinds of things do they think they're in control of or want to be in control of? And you, without asking people much of anything about their inner beliefs, you would learn a lot about their
Yeah.
inner beliefs. That's a great of the world. I love that question very
Well,
much.
the other part also is you get to just see how humble they are,
For sure.
but also how small or large they think too. Because the thing about it is a big question intentionally to go, well, if you had that much freedom, what would you do with it?
Yeah. Would they rule from their head? Would their words be from their head? Would their words be from their heart? You'd get a lot of information. That's a really good question. I like it.
Yeah. Like, would you direct everything, or would you get a team? Would you build would you delegate everything? Would you find people? What would you do? It really does get to describe how people are, which is really wonderful. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. I mean, you'd find out, do they like doing stuff by themselves? Do they like doing stuff with teams? Oh, that is such a good question. I mean, if you really, this is why you're listening to learn, not to judge, because you will learn all these things about them first, and then you can reassess, where do I land in that? Where do they land in me with all of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So one of the things I was asked was, what were really pivotal points in my life, period. So I was more comfortable at that moment talking about my professional life and how I've never known what I wanted to be ever, not once. Everything's just sort of come to me. People have had visions about what I could be, and they would offer it to me or assist me or be there. I mean, I would be there, but I'd take it in. And when my brother-in-law knew, when he sat in the dentist office at 4, that he wanted to be a dentist, and he ended up owns that practice now. And that was never me. So that's one of the things that I've had, these pivotal points, and it's always involved me being open and other people stepping forward. It was really interesting to me to think back and look at every business side, every professional thing in my life has happened that way. And so it was fun for me to think about it too when I answered the question.
Well, the other question I've asked as well oftentimes is what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, the assumption is people think, well, I'm growing up, I got a job. It's like, is that really what you want to do? So what you said inspired it for me. Is like, I love that question, because if somebody is not living their life's work now, maybe that's something they'll put out as they want to do in the future. So again, it becomes an evocative question that creates a discussion, creates input, because I know so many people, clients and friends, who have been doing the same job for 30 years. That isn't the juice, isn't the jam, isn't what they want to do. However, it pays the bills and it's been stable and they think they're okay with it. And the challenge is that they start identifying themselves as the job rather than who they are. So this gives a question to provoke, like, what would you do for your business, your life, if you had freedom to do whatever you wanted to do?
I like that. And you could even be into what would you like more of next or new next?
Yeah.
Because it's a really, I relish a partner in my life who thinks that way and asks questions that way. That's the people I know that have been married forever, that are still, they're each other's favorite people, do this with their partner. Have you heard about this new thing? I want to share it with you. Or, gosh, I think you'd really like this because this is but it's way out. My sister-in-law, who's such an introvert, is now taking line dancing lessons. I almost fell off my chair.
Right.
She's in this small book group because they're all writers, and one of them does this. So she decided to go once, and she likes it because she doesn't have to talk to anybody. And it's fun exercise. I was like, she never would have done that on her own. But when the person suggested it, it turned out she's a little tired after because it's draining for an introvert. But how fun to say, I didn't know, but now I know I want more of this. I've never wanted this in my life. Yeah. Isn't that fun? I was so shocked.
Well, the thing is, that speaks to the idea that when you go on first dates, the questions you might get asked may give you insight about doing things different in your life than you've done to this point. So even if the date doesn't go anywhere, your life can. So there's benefits to the questions that you get asked and you ask the other person that can give you more clarity about what your next steps might be in social life, service life, personal life, business life, any of those things. Because there's a seed planted under each question that can give you food for thought.
And hopefully, Barry and I stress, when you're at a first meeting, please go prepared to learn about yourself. What things did you learn about yourself? Gosh, I never
Right.
thought about that. I felt really prepared, or I'm really open to more things than I thought. Oh, I really am kind of stuck in that way. Just thinking about it, not giving yourself grief about it. And
Mhm.
if you go with that goal, you will never be disappointed. And then you're going to meet another person, whether or not you want to see them again. They're interesting people doing really interesting things that maybe aren't your thing, but oh my God, I was so glad to meet people that are doing this thing that I don't want to do, but they're doing a good job at it. So that way you'll feel successful and positive about every first meeting, no matter what happens. So that's what the structure of the questions are. I want to have a question that'll help learn stuff about me too, not just about them.
Right. I mean, it sounds selfish, but the truth is, if you're going to date, you will discover things about yourself you didn't plan on learning. You're not going as a cold, like, complete person, and the other person's going to do all the changing. No, you both get to change.
Yeah. It's wonderful. I hope we've piqued your interest with this conversation, because if you're out there dating, you're going to have first dates, you're going to have
Mhm.
first meetings, whether it's a first meet and greet or it's an official date. Feeling informed and confident that you can hold your own in a conversation. There's a goal at the end of it to find out more things about this person. Dating would just feel better. It would feel
Yeah,
more fun. That's why we're talking about this. We want dating to feel more fun.
absolutely. So,
So if you would like to reach me, again, go to my website, scroll to the middle, schedule a complimentary conversation with me. I'd be so grateful to have a conversation with you and see if we can get you on a good track. On that same homepage, you can scroll to the bottom and click on all my social media on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest, and the wonderful YouTube channel that has the repeats of all of these wonderful videos. Barry and I think we're close to 230. We should have a clink of glasses for that. And at
yes.
the top of my homepage, you can download my free dating advice book. My
Mhm.
web designer put together all my dating advice that I've been doing in my blogs and taping over the years, and it's all right there. And all I ask is a review. Let me know what you think about it. And you're
Yeah,
still welcome to send me an email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And Barry,
perfect.
how do they reach you?
So, as mentioned at the halftime break, go to my website, which is barryselby.com. And on there is a link at the top of the screen, which is, I keep breaking out, but the first option on top of the screen is to schedule a conversation with me, my calendar, same thing as before. At the bottom of the screen is an option to join my email list. Just go straight into my email list there. Just put your name and the email in, and you get onto my regular emails, which I send every week. Actually, more than that now, but definitely has a replay of the show and other things I'm doing. Sorry, getting over head cold, so I've been choking a little bit. In the middle of the screen is a link to I have 2 quizzes. The first of 2 assessments. The first one is the relationship and readiness assessment. And that is, you basically click the button and you go to barryselby.com/quiz. And that will basically take you through several questions that will give you feedback and guidance about where you are and where you want to go. It will provoke things for you, ideally. So then you'll actually reach out to me and have a conversation. That's why I do it, of course.
Okay.
Secondly, there's another quiz, which is not actually on the homepage, but you can type it in by going to barryselby.com/self-quiz, because this one is the self-relationship quiz. It's the self-assessment, and it's 7 different sections that will give you some clarity in how you're doing well or not doing so well in different areas. It gives you a downloadable PDF and some guidance you can go through and really get some tips and steps to take forward to move forward where you want to go, with an invitation to have a conversation with me as well. It all leads back to that. Also on my website is my book, which is under the navigation. You click on my book, and on that book page, you can definitely buy my book, but also at the top of the page is an audio playback of a 11, 12-minute book review discussion between 2 really professional AI-generated voices. So it sounds like 2 book review critics talking about my book. They're made up, but the book review is accurate. So listen to that and enjoy that, and so you get to know if you like my book. In fact, you buy it. And just a couple of plugs. One friend of mine just called my book her relationship Bible. Yeah, she said that, which is wonderful. And someone else called it relationship encyclopedia. So I guess my book has impact for people. Somebody loving how people are loving my book. So definitely go to my book page, get the book. I'll change your life. And if you want to go deeper, reach out to me. Social media, you can find me under my name, Barry Selby, on YouTube. As we already said, we got tons of videos out there on Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Blue Skies. I'm also under the real Barry Selby on Threads and on Instagram. And yes, I covered everything else. And again, we do have all the replays of our shows on YouTube on both Christine and my YouTube channels.
Yes. And then you can also watch us on your device on Roku or Apple Podcast or YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also take us with you, right, Barry?
Absolutely, because our show is now officially a podcast. We have it out on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and the other podcast platforms. So you can take us with you and listen wherever you are, because sometimes it's hard to watch a video when you're driving a car or something. So having an audio listen in your ear is much easier and safer. So be safe out there. Listen to us.
Yes. And we'd love for you to like and review and share it with your friends who are having challenges with their dating and relationships. And just a reminder, we're here every Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific live and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. We'd love for you to join us. We take questions on the air and happily answer them. And if not, watch the replay and make comments on it and share it with your friends.
Absolutely. So thanks for watching this week.
Thanks. We appreciate you watching. We know there's lots of stuff out there, and we are grateful that you watch us and listen to us and share it with your friends. And we'll be back next week with more information. Help you with your dating and relationship life.
Take care.